So we were talking about this video, the Hugh-mongous guy video, and what I can't stand watching is the actual video, the actual recording. And you're saying what's best to watch is the commentation video.
Right. There's one where it's this H3 guy, him and his girlfriend or wife. But anyway, they go through the video and they kind of go step by step, and then it's not as painful to watch.
Okay.
Because they're kind of making comments as they go along, and then it feels more like, wow, that's funny. Whereas if you just watch the raw video, the original raw video, I think it's like really painful to watch. And we talked about this video a few episodes ago, but you still haven't watched the whole thing. And so I was I've been asking you, have you watched it yet? And so we started off with that, and then you're like, what, do you want me to watch it? Well, that's why I keep asking if you've watched it.
All right. So we'll leave it up to the guys on chat right now. Do you guys want us to play this? What we'll do is we'll play it, and then we'll stop it every once in a while and tell you our thoughts. Or would you like us to skip it or do it some other time? Let us know. Right in chat. Go to chat and let us know what you think.
Skip. Jeff says skip.
Okay.
And no one else has found the chat. Yeah.
I win, Jeff says. All right, we're skipping it. Cool. So what I'll do is I'll share with everybody what video we're talking about again in case you missed it. It is this one. If you just go YouTube search Hugh-mongous, H-U-G-H space M-U-N-G-U-S. It's this one with the gas mask or whatever
welding masks.
Welding masks. The crazy feminist gets triggered video.
Yeah.
It's the one with 4,659,000 views. So if you're interested in it, there it is, and maybe we'll talk about it some other time. But we're going to continue on. We've been talking about community, getting deep into it. We're really glad Fred's here today. We were kind of worried that Fred might not make it today because it's so smoky outside where you live. But he's here, and we're very happy you're here because Paul wants a lot of input from you on what we're going to talk about today. And Paul, where do we leave off? What are we up to next?
All right. So I've got it noted that we talked about all of my stuff up to the point that I got onto this property. So a lot of my background in community before arriving here, and of course the mission is we're going to try and do something with Central Leader. Now, I thought that when I arrived here, each different person would have a different dealio that they would want to arrange, but it seems like what people needed was they needed me to proclaim a deal, and they would sign up for that deal.
You're talking about like a business that they run on the property, or what?
Well, like, what's their relationship to me to be living here?
Okay.
And it's like, in fact, probably one of the most important lessons we learned here, because we came up with gappers. There's people that are goofy about permaculture, and it's kind of like a substitute for the woofer program. It's a little different. We had a whole bunch of people arrive the first year as gappers. We even had some people that were officially woofers that came here. And we made, when it comes to community, we made a critical discovery. We call it the pig bucket problem. Have you ever heard of the pig bucket problem, Josiah?
I'm trying to imagine problems I've had with pig buckets, but no, I have not heard the pig bucket problem.
Yeah, it really has very little to do with an actual pig bucket, but the pig bucket problem is like, you know, it's a recipe. So Dana is saying, oh yeah. So I don't know, does Dana know what the pig bucket problem is, or is Dana just like pigs?
Pigs! We're going to talk about pigs, finally. I've been waiting for weeks.
I'm pro pork chop.
Maybe pro bucket.
Yeah, maybe pro bucket. That's cool. So the thing is we kept having people who would show up, and they were fantastic people. And a lot of them would only be here for like a week or 2 weeks. Some people were sure they were here for life, but they might only be here a couple of weeks. Some people might be here for just a few weeks, and then they stay here for years.
Like that guy.
Like that guy. And so anyway, what we did was we had a lot of new people showing up, like several people a week that were new showing up. And they wanted to help. They'd be here for, like it's their first day, and there's a bucket, and somebody says, "What's that for?" It's for the pigs. And we're throwing kitchen scraps into it and stuff. And they're like, I'm going to help. I'm going to, no one needs to tell me how to do this. I know what to do. It is a bucket for the pigs, and all I got to do is pick the bucket up and take it to the pigs. That's all there is to it. I can help with this. I'm so helpful.
Right.
Now the thing is that the pig bucket is filled at base camp, and the pigs are up at the lab. So okay, so it's a little further to go, but still, it's not rocket science here. It's going to be in pig bellies here in a little bit. So people would take that bucket up, but the thing is that the person, the woman who managed the pigs, had a way that she wanted to do it. And so she sent word down that if you bring the pig bucket up, that's great, but set it aside, set it on this table. Don't just feed it to the pigs. And so we put the word around, but new guy hasn't heard the word. And
Okay.
so new guy just puts it into the pig's bowl. And then we have a new guy that does this with the pig bucket like twice a week. And we keep telling, and so then the woman who was taking care of the pigs, the first time she just sent word down and, let's not do it that way. I've got another thing I'm doing. Please just put the pig bucket on the table. I'll feed it to the pigs later in my special way. My guess is that as she puts it out, she's going to say the magic words, which are pig, 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 pig. And so what happens is that when you do that, and then if the pigs get out, then you yell the magic words, pig, 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 and the pigs come a running.
Yeah.
They're like, it's time for the candy and ice cream.
Right.
So, which is a smart thing to do. But the key is that the first time is like, okay, somebody put it in the bowl again, please, to put it on the table, and I'll put it out later. And the third or fourth time she was more emphatic. Fifth or sixth time she said it much louder. You get into time number 8 or 9, she's fucking losing her shit. How fucking hard can this be? How many times do I have to fucking say it?
I'm getting the BB gun.
So, so then word comes down, don't ever send the pig bucket up again. It's too frustrating. So take the words pig bucket off of your bucket and you do something else with it. We don't want it anywhere near here. This is too frustrating.
All right.
And it's like, very good point. So we worked out that this kind of thing was happening all day long, every day. And so we needed to solve this problem. And the solution we came up with was twofold, 2 points. One, we need to label the fuck out of everything. And so on the bucket, it says pig bucket, do not put in pig bowl, put the bucket on the table next to where the pigs are. And then there's a table there, and it says pig bucket goes here, do not feed, so labels on stuff, signage.
Yeah.
Because embrace that there's going to be noobs. Then the next thing is that we really need people to be here 3 years or more. Because if somebody heard that first message come down, then, you know, that knowledge is retained.
Right. Yeah. They're
So-
there to correct folks that are not reading the damn labels.
In fact, when it comes to building Allerton Abbey or Wafadis or so much of the other earthworks and stuff that we've done, it's like an enormous amount of money was spent to teach the people that were here these things, and with the idea that they're going to be here for 5, 10, 20 years, and they left, you know, for one reason or another. And, you know, we're not imprisoning anybody or anything like that. They could go whenever they want. But, you know, the charm wore off of being here, I guess. But it's like, so now all that knowledge that we worked so hard to build left. It was so very expensive. So what we need is people that are going to be here long term.
I think we definitely see that in business. People, I hear a lot of complaints from people that are undesirables, as I call them, that are looking for a job, and they're like, why can't I get a job? And a lot of people don't think about the employers. Like, for some reason, thinking about the employers is beyond most people. I don't know why. The like lack of empathy or what it is, but the employer is going to dump a lot of time and resources into training you. And so when he's looking at the applications and he sees the undesirable or someone that's not going to be sticking around for very long, they're not going to waste their time and energy and all the money and effort it takes to train you. Anyway, so I imagine it's the same with community. If you get a bunch of people, if you're lucky enough to be in a situation where you have a bunch of applicants and you get to choose who you're coming into your community, you're going to be picky, or you can be picky with those people. But if you're just getting started, where does that leave you? Do you say, okay, well, I'm not going to be picky because I need people, or do you say, I'm still going to be picky, fuck it? You either can or cannot come in here based on my thoughts. And I think you've gone that route. For the most part, you've been picky. You're saying,
well, there's been certain parts where I've been really picky, because the other thing is like, you know, so as a software engineer, 95% of your software engineers have no fucking idea what they're doing. I'm amazed that they have a job. I mean, I look at their work and it's like, this, you spent 2 months on this and you've got nothing to show for it.
Did they lie on their application because they're undesirables who can never get hired?
Yeah, that's another thing too, is who's looking for work, and it's like we need to bring in 30 new developers, 30 more developers onto our team, and it's like so you interview 100 people, and it turns out that 95 of them are totally worthless.
Yeah.
And so it's like so anyway, I came up with a process, but that's another story for another day. And it's like, okay, so look, we're gonna hire professionals for something, and then you've got you know, again, if 10 people show up, 9 or 10 of them are glad to take that coin but cannot do the job, you know, and it's like so you get to hear for all kinds of cheap excuses for weeks, and then you're in that awkward position of saying you're fired, you know. But there's this other thing we have, which we call the Favican problem. And so Jocelyn has this lovely book, and there's like some YouTube videos about this place, I believe, which is on the very northern edge of Sweden, and they are out in the middle of nowhere, and they have this restaurant, which apparently is this super amazing restaurant. But the problem they have is they can't get people to come out and work for them. And the reason is like, if you get up and you move and you go there, and then if you happen to lose your job, for whatever reason, like you don't like them or they don't like you, it's not like you're going to get another job there. You're in the middle of nowhere. You'd have to move all the way back.
Yeah.
So whereas if you're in a city and you're working someplace and they don't like you or you don't like them, then no problem. Go get another job. Although I think the point you were making is that for some people, it's like they expect to get a professional wage, maybe $50 an hour or, or more. But they don't have what it takes to even get a minimum wage job.
Right.
And so then they demand all kinds of stuff, including the money, and they're all whiny and bitchy, and they spend all their hours every day bitching about shit, not getting shit done.
Well, that's the great
professional job.
That's something nice about business is that, all right, in your example, you got 100 applicants, you're looking for 30, 95 of those 100 aren't the best, but 5 of them are good. So the 5 of them, you're giving them a good pay. And then you're like, well, fuck, I still need 25 people. This is what I got to choose from, so I'm going to try and get the best I can, but they're not going to get the same pay or offered the same amount of pay because they're not as high quality. So how do you do that in community?
So, yeah, I mean, that's the other thing too, is like if you're trying to hire somebody again and you're out in the sticks and you're like, okay, we need to hire 20 people in the next week. And it's like, okay, how many people applied? 0.
Yeah.
Or maybe you got 1. And it's like, okay, well, that one was the best of all the applicants. And
right.
So we're going to hire that one. And then, of course,
They didn't want to come because of smoke.
we had, yeah, and it's like we should put on now. Is it smoky up where you're at?
Hell no. It is gone towards the Idaho, Canada way. So
Okay.
It is past.
I've been up your way and it's been plenty smoky.
Yeah, in the past, definitely.
It comes and goes. July and August, it's forest fire season. Yeah. And maybe 15 years from now, we won't have this problem anymore because they'll finally let enough of it burn that, because when you try and manage forest, where it's one person managing 100,000 acres, that's the way it is. Whereas in a permaculture system, if you've got one person managing 20 acres of forest, then it's a more symbiotic relationship. And you don't have this kind of shit going down.
Yeah, and and in community, a permaculture community, you're surrounded by other people doing the exact same thing. And so a lot of smaller, more tightly managed. Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. The Favican problem, the pig bucket problem, kind of painting a picture here. I was talking about how people kind of needed me to lay out a plan. The first thing I came up with was deep roots. And so people lay down a chunk of coin and they get an acre for life. It's kind of like rent for life. And there's a little bit more to it than that. We've got a thread that kind of goes into a lot of detail about it. So there was that. We came up with some other things. We came up with a gapper deal where people could come and pitch a tent and participate, and we would feed them, and we fed them extremely well. We spent a lot of time teaching them a lot of stuff with the idea that hopefully half of them would stick around long term. And trying to think of how to say this without saying it, but there was a good reason why people from the first, we call it the 20-month party. So for the first 20 months, we had a point of stress for the people that would come here, and now that point of stress is gone. And so there was a good reason why people would head down the road. And so now I think things have been like 50 times smoother. So that now that point of stress is no longer here. And I think we're downplaying the Gapper program now, and I'm very excited about the boot camp program. But all right, I'm going to turn to my list here real quick. Now, one of the things that I mentioned in a previous Smackdown as part of this series was this thing about, and I've got a thing to add to it. This is why I'm bringing it back up. Was this thing about all of human history and 90% of human psychology can be boiled down to one sentence, and that is most people need to hear their own opinion from all other people and are frustrated that they don't have the might to make it right. And so then during the PDC, I shared this, and we had a psychologist actively watching, and so then he emailed me, I absolutely agree with that statement. I'd even add to it, and are frustrated they don't have the might to make it right. So instead, they transform the problems unique to their brain into everybody else's problems. This is pretty much the root cause analysis of social dysfunction. So the important thing to say is that people need me to think the thoughts that they command me to think, to say the things that they command me to say, to do the things that they command me to do. And if I don't, they lose their shit.
And so why was this brought up in a PDC? What was the need to discuss this at a PDC? Or is this just normal PDC stuff?
Well, you know, during a PDC, there's always that teacher-student kind of thing going on, and people are asking questions and stuff like that. But we had some drama getting started, and at first I didn't even understand the drama. Like, you know, there's always this kind of thing. It's always going on. Almost every time there's been somebody here, there's people that tell me, your father was here, and he's amazing. And at the same time, he sat me down for, I believe it was 2.5 hours to tell me the thoughts I need to think, the things I need to do, and the things I need to say.
Right.
And he spent 2.5 hours telling me and it's like, this is normal. This is standard human behavior. It's not, I wouldn't call it good behavior, but I would say it's normal.
And I would say that it gets exaggerated or emphasized when you have a community and then you're bringing in people, or you have a community, and then all of a sudden you're bringing in people that are not part of that community. That's a big influx of people that are not used to the way things go or have been working, and they don't know what's going on in the community, or if there's any tensions or anything like that existing that are blowing things out of proportion.
And I think that up until like with Ant Village, that up until this last April, I think things were very, very smooth. I mean, there were a couple of bumps in the road, but they were minor. I mean, I've been to a lot of different intentional communities. I've lived in an intentional community, and it's like they're constantly hashing through issues. And so I kind of feel like issues were so rare that we didn't even have like a scheduled meeting, like, okay, let's all sit down and hash through our stuff. So now I want to look to Fred, because I kind of feel like I'm making some bold claims, and Fred will keep me on the straight and narrow. Does this seem about right? Am I exaggerating anything?
I mean, things seem to be going pretty well. Yeah. We're making plans for the future.
Well, now that's what you would think, being in your position compared to their position, right? Is possible that things are happening that they're not bringing up to you because there isn't weekly meetings, or what's being brought up to you isn't direct enough or being concise enough with what kind of issue this is, or possible solutions we have that will work with you, or what you would offer as a solution, things like that. The communication can often be lacking.
So I thought things were really smooth. So when the PDC started, I thought, you know, things were pretty normal. We had, you know, some personalities that had been here, and we had one guy who had a kind of a God complex going on, and so he really felt that everybody needed to be his subordinate. And it's funny because earlier you were talking about work. This particular guy couldn't seem to hold down a job anywhere, and so then, but he was very good at like telling others what to do. He didn't like taking direction from Fred, and then he'd go over Fred's head and come to me and tell me how it had to be.
Mm-hmm.
And it seemed like his position was that I wasn't a good leader either. He needed to be in charge and tell me what to do and say, and then command Fred. So it was a struggle in that space. And
this is before the PDC?
Yeah, a little bit before, and then it continued into, and then there was some stuff, like apparently the ants had become dissatisfied, and I didn't really know. Fred kind of told me, like just before the PDC started, some stuff, but it seemed small to me. And then Fred was emphatic, these are not small things. And so I gave it more time, and basically part of the message was, we'll deal with it after the event is over.
Yeah, there's a lot going on right now, guys. We will deal with this,
Yeah.
but we got to get through the PDC.
And that was part of what they said was, don't worry about it now. We'll talk about it after. But people from the PDC went and visited with them and got an earful. And I didn't know that there was and so, all right, so now there's people during the PDC that are kind of like students are making like they're unhappy about the something in the PDC, something that was so incredibly trivial. It's one of those things where it's like, if you're making a big deal out of this, the real problem must be something else. So I responded to the thing that they brought up, and they just never were satisfied with my answer, and they just blew it up more and more. Now, if you go and for those people that have all the video from the PDC, you can see it in one of the morning sessions, like day 8 or 9, somewhere around there.
Or you're addressing this, or you're trying to...
I'm addressing it. Somebody brings up this thing, and I just think, yeah, all right, we'll talk about that. And then it turns out like more than an hour later, we're still talking, and we finally had to stop because we have to get on with the PDC.
Right.
And like, this is something that's like, should be 2 minutes tops. But wow.
Nexus 5X has a clarifying question. Are you saying the ants were unhappy at the guests for the PDC? I don't know.
No. The ants, the ants wanted...
Ants had standard community kind of problems that they needed to address, or it's just things that you would find in community. There's just problems, and it's got to be addressed at some point.
They wanted something to change, and
right.
So, there were the
not with the PDC or the people at the PDC.
Yeah, no. The people at the PDC had heard about these things, but it was like, I'm going to use the word exaggerated. You think exaggerated is fair? Like the things the ants were concerned about?
Oh, I don't know if it was exaggerated. It was just didn't seem like such a big deal until the people at the PDC were like, "Oh no, that's a big deal. You can't wait to talk about that. You gotta take some action right now." Like
fueling the fire or whatever.
Yeah.
Just kind of like, let's give oxygen to this.
All right. So, the important thing is that somehow it was impacting the PDC, and it's like, so next thing you know, I have like 10.5 hours, and on the first day I put 4.5 hours into because then people would come into my office, and then they'd, and that's,
Now, also, let's look at this from the PDC students' point of view. There's a bunch of students. Some of them are into this, or they're interested in what's happening with the ants, and they're concerned, or they're firing up the ants or whatever. Others are like, this is totally not, I don't give a shit about any of this. Why are we talking about it? And some are like, Uh, I see both points of view, and let's just you guys work on that yourselves, and we'll move on with the course.
Well, the important thing is, and to this day, I think I've probably got 12 and a half hours invested into hearing about this particular issue. I still have no idea what they were upset about. I never 12 and a half hours, and it was like I would say, all right, so why is it you're upset about this? Well, because it's wrong. And so why, help me understand, why is it wrong? Give me an idea why it's wrong. It's immoral.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I love the idea of morals. Help me understand how it's immoral. Well, because it's wrong. And it's like, it was this cyclic kind of thing like that. And so in the end, what it really was is that they picked something. These few people who decided to fight for the cause, they became social justice warriors. And I was the man. And so they fought. They made it into an issue, and they fought for this thing. And so basically, they told me what I have to think. And then I basically said, can you help me to understand why I should think that way? And I think their response to that is no. No, you just have to do what you're told. You just do what we tell you to do, and then we'll find something else to be angry about. You know, so I just kind of thought, well, might as well be angry about this one, because, you know, rather than moving on to another one, I can't make heads or tails of it. So that's how this came up. That's how this thing came up. Now, I think what I want to do is set it aside for a moment. We can come back to it. And if you really want to see it in action, if you just feel like, oh man, I want to fully appreciate whatever it was that went down, it's all on video.
Yeah.
Look at it right now.
Yep. There is something that I do want to talk about and I would like Fred's opinion, is that both Paul and I see it in myself, and I see it in others as well that I work with or have business relationships with, is that we're very, or Paul especially, is very matter of fact. Like, it's all about what are the facts. I want facts, not feelings, kind of an attitude. Now, you do listen to the feelings, but you do. I think facts trump feelings. If we're gonna put it on a scale, it's pretty even, but facts are gonna weigh out feels. What do you think, Fred? Do you think that it's difficult to talk to Paul about, like, if you're having bad feelings about something in the community, or do you hear that at all? Is that like?
Should I leave the room for this?
No.
Be honest.
Well, it's getting to a point, if it is the case. Do people express that, Fred?
I'm not so sure that's the dividing line. Like, I don't think it's that they have feelings and Paul's not here. I think it's that they don't want to, you know, they came here knowing how this community was run, and after, you know, they thought that that was totally great, but after they're here, they're like, oh, well, it's actually going to affect me in this way that I didn't understand. So instead of, you know,
well, I think
and they want the community that thing that they're upset about to change or whatever.
Right. Yeah, I think what happens is that the person comes to you with a problem that they're having, and then either they don't have the full picture, like they just didn't understand other things that were happening, there's a reason why we're doing it this way, or what they find out is that they don't really have a good case for what they're wanting. And so when that happens, as the person expressing that you do not have the greatest case, like, these are the reasons why you're wrong, or these are the reasons why we're just not going to do what you're suggesting, and they're totally legit, the person that's bringing you that isn't like, oh, I didn't even think about it that way. Everything is good now. Yay, we're done. No, they're going out with, okay, I get what you're saying, but they're still not happy about it.
But I still want you to change them.
Right, right.
Yeah.
But something still needs to change. I'm still frustrated. I don't know what about exactly. It definitely wasn't the thing I just came to you about because I just got proven wrong on that or whatever. I don't know. It's difficult.
Did you get the answer from Fred you wanted?
Yes.
Okay.
What do you think, Paul?
I like to think that I listen to everybody. I mean, in order for this, if you're going to have a central leader system, you have to listen to everybody to the point where they've said everything they need to say. Now, the key is that the decision is still mine to make,
Right.
and hopefully you get an idea before you get here about whether or not I'm fucking nuts. Like, am I not compatible? Am I going to pick things that are horrible?
I will say that I definitely, in my experience, whenever someone needs to talk to Paul, even if it's about something that's stupid or in anybody else's mind is not a legitimate thing, Paul will talk to this person in great depth. He will spend a long time talking with the people that come to him with any kind of issues that they're addressing with him. Paul will be in the middle of something very busy, in the middle of work, stop what he is doing and talk with you for a half hour about whatever it is you need to get off your chest, and then he will go back to work after it has been done. I admired that because it wasn't the I'm fucking busy, go away. I definitely did not see that at all.
In order for this kind of, I mean, if you have consensus, then you're going to have 1 or 2 meetings a week to make decisions, and they'll go on for hours. And it's a very time-consuming process. And it's kind of like, if you're going to do this central leader thing, it can only work if the central leader listens to everybody infinitely. And of course, that's to replace the consensus model. Because if you listen to everybody infinitely, then it still ends up being less time than the amount of time you would spend, for me, than if we did consensus.
Yeah.
And then usually somebody comes in and their knowledge of the topic is like this, and my knowledge is like 10 times bigger. And so a lot of it is like, okay, I'm going to tell you why we're doing it that way. And then, dumpity, 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 dump. And then they're like, oh, now I get it. And then, but if you've kind of got it into your thing, like, oh no, I just need you to obey me.
Yeah.
Then it's like, it turns out, and on a larger scale, there's Permies.com and all my other websites. And I am not, I've had more than 1,000 people. And I know that sounds like that's got to be an exaggeration, and I have no way to prove it to you. But I've had more than 1,000 people tell me how I need to manage my websites. And so the thing is that if you've got 1,000 puppet masters, you cannot possibly please every puppet master.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like I'm following a path very much based on what are my philosophies, which is my right. It's my website, but there's 1,000 people that are very upset with me because I would not obey and do what they told me to do.
Yeah, but a good way of judging whether that is working is how many people are on that website. And you have a fuckload of people on Permies. So there might be 1,000 people that say it's got to be some way, but the majority of people are still believing in what you're doing and coming to it, flocking to it. So
it's working. It's working. And it's the same thing here. Is I'm working on a recipe that'll be working for others. Now, all right. So Nexus 5 says, with the recent shows, it's more of a post-mortem of the PDC, or is this about maybe restructuring how PDCs will be handled by the Duke of Permaculture? Say that exploration of community is the function. I do have ideas on how PDCs will be different. But I don't think that's what this is really about. What this is about is trying to restructure a couple of things here. I think I want, and then plus, I like the idea that we come up with something that could potentially be a template for other communities in the future. And I think that with the failure rate of other communities being so profound, we've got to try something different. And I kind of feel like what we are working with here is a recipe that has a very high probability of success. And I think we've seen a lot of powerful indicators for success so far. And at the same time, I think that we do need to polish our systems a bit in a variety of different ways.
I see this as we're talking about community because we want, it's a very knowledgeable experience for us, the viewers, to listen to Paul about community because he's doing a community and he's willing to share the things that are going wrong with community, which, like he's saying, a lot of community fails. And I think a lot of people aren't sharing why there's failures or things that would lead up to a failure.
Right.
And Paul is wanting, and I am wanting, more communication with communities on what's working, what isn't working, so that we can start building communities that do work and don't fail 95% of the time within the first 2 years. And then as far as the PDC goes, this is a great way to talk about what happens in a community when you bring in other people from outside of the community for short periods of time. Or it's just, it's a learning experience for all of us that are either thinking about joining community or creating community ourselves. So
I think it's fair to say that when these issues got brought up during the PDC, this was the thing that was brought up was so trivial, so tiny, that you know that's not the real problem. And but I took the time to hear everybody out as much as they wanted to talk about it. And I never did understand the problem, and I continued to move on the path I was already on, which is the path that all the students agreed to. It's the path. It's a very simple, anyway, that's another, I'm going to step away from that. I did want to say, okay, let's set this aside. Let's just set this aside for a moment. I want to go back to my list.
Yeah.
And now that we're here, there's a couple of other things to bring up. Now, in a previous Smackdown, did we talk about the idea of when you get to a new property, about connecting with your neighbors or not connecting with your neighbors? Did I talk about that? I did talk about that.
We have talked about this, yes.
Okay, all right. And I talked about how on Mount Spokane I had a potluck, and that brought up a bunch of shit. But so the thing is that I shopped around for 3.5 years for a property, and I needed a place where I could build a wafati and not have people stop me. Now, if you're going to innovate, the law of our land is pretty much thou shalt not innovate. You are allowed to build things according to the way things have been built in the past. But now, of course, if you have a change you want to have, not a problem. All you got to do is spend a couple $1 million to get the change to go through our process. It could take 5, 6, 7 years. But we're adaptable. We can change. And then by the time we get in the 6th year, you might find it's going to actually be 10 years because we've changed in other ways as well. So change, money, only for the rich. Only do the rich get allowed to change. Now, of course, how do you change the laws for building codes? Don't you first have to build one and see how it goes? And then after you build one and see how it goes, don't you kind of need to build a few hundred to see how that goes? But it's all in places where the building code says, oh. So I shopped for a very long time, and I came up with a rather magical property. I've got a place where there's no building codes. I have a place where we have the most magnificent natural building materials. Lots and lots of trees, lots of clay, and lots of different kinds of clay, lots of different kinds of sand. We've got, it's just magic. It's the best. So, all right, now it's time to build and experiment and learn things and try things. And I made a choice. I made a choice of, and plus when I first bought the land, I again had a bunch of people who, that lived locally, and they came to my property and they expressed that they wanted me to obey them. They wanted me to make my property open to them to come and do whatever they wanted to do, because the reasoning was because they did that before. Now, I bought the land from a timber company, and a timber company has this policy of like, anybody can come onto our land and do stuff, as long as you don't, hurt our trees. Well, this particular piece of land turned out to be something where people were hurting the trees. They were doing crazy shit, and there was a lot of yucky things. And so the timber company put up a gate, and then the locals got upset about the gate. And so when I bought the property, I was told it's a bit of a PR nightmare. So then these people told me to obey, and I did not obey, because what they proposed was to drive dirt bikes through my property and shoot things and do all the things that they did before. And it's like, no, it's a private thing. I'm not doing that anymore. So they were angry because they wanted their playground back. So for the first year, we had a lot of stuff that went bad, but we kept the gate locked, and eventually those people went away. And the key is that rather than having the strategy that I tried on Mount Spokane, which did not work out well, which is like, I'm going to have a big potluck, and I'm going to get to know everybody, in my area. I decided to go with a different strategy, because now, throughout all these years before buying this property, I have visited a lot of properties where a lot of people told me their tales. Either they currently had a nightmare relationship with the next door neighbor, or they're on a new property because on a previous property they had a nightmare relationship with a next door neighbor, and they just had to sell that property to get away from the nightmare. And now they're on a new property, and their choice is to just lay low and have some peace. And I kind of get it. I after years and years of the stuff that I had on Mount Spokane, and then all these other people that I have visited with, I've come to the conclusion of like, yeah, I just want to have some peace. And so when it comes to community, because we all kind of want community to some degree, some more than others, I'd rather bond with the people that are on my property, permaculture people.
Yeah.
And I'm not a person who ever goes to a bar, but some people like to go to a bar and hoist a few and do what you do at bars, which might be fist fights. I don't know.
Or try and build community. I mean, that's another thing people do at bar is meet people.
Sure. Sure. And some people believe that fist fights is a kind of community.
Right.
But whatever it is that they do at the bar, whatever, it's just like Cheers. It's like right out of that television show. Cheers is what they're. So maybe there's that. I've never been into that. But I love the idea though of being able to visit with the people that are permaculture enthusiasts living on the same plot of land, all trying to do permaculture. That sounds fantastic to me. And then if I want to get a broader community, I want to see a play, I want to, go to some music or whatever. The Missoula community is the most fantastic community in the world. So I go to Missoula. I don't go to the little local town. I go all the way into Missoula. And so then the other thing is, well, anyway, so this is the path I was choosing. And so I guess I mentioned it a little bit in the past, and let's see, I'm trying to look at my notes here. We had a lot of awful things happen the first few months I was here. We tried to be boring and forgettable, and it seems to have worked. I think that when my plan right now is when we hit the 10-year mark, then we'll open up base camp. And base camp will be a demonstration site, which is base camp is currently under construction, as is the lab, as is everything we're doing. It's all currently under construction. But when we hit the 10-year mark, I like the idea of base camp being far more open. And we'll then, you know, and it's a little bit like Apple, the company that makes iPods, that if you want to go and work on the iPod before the iPod was reduced, you would go through 7 layers of security before you would get to your desk where you would work on it. Mm-hmm. If you instead tried to develop an iPod on a street corner with a cardboard cable, your little soldering iron out, people would come by and they'd say, "The fuck are you doing? What the? Is that smoke coming off that solder? What's in that smoke? Is that like some kind of toxic stuff? That's the air I'm breathing. What are you trying to do here?" You'd have to justify what you're building before it's complete. And they would look at it and it would not look like, you'd say, well, it's going to be a tiny little music player. You can't do that. That's impossible. And you're destroying the environment while you try to build. And, you know, so the thing is whenever you're under construction, everybody's a fucking critic. And so then what you want to do is keep the critics away until it's done being built. So then when you're all ready for the public to look at it, then you open your doors and say, look at all this lovely stuff.
Well, also, before that, you have like a review process where there's a couple of people that get access to it to review it and give opinion as well. After it's got to a certain stage, you have the reviewers that are going to look at it before it goes public.
Yeah.
Which I think is what happens with like the students that come for the PDC. They get a little sneak peek at what's going on at the lab, whereas it's not open to just anybody going and looking at it.
True. Absolutely. Absolutely. And then, okay, so I'm trying to lay low, and it's a good time to point out that like Joel Salatin had that whole thing where he liked to say he wants to hang signs around his property that say trespassers will be impressed, which is a fun thing to say. But of course, he's under so much scrutiny at his place that he wrote that book, Everything I Want to Do Is Illegal.
Yeah.
And the sheer ecstasy of the lunatic farmer. So I'm trying to like say I've got a lot of stuff I want to get done, and so I just kind of want to be left alone. And in the meantime, there's a bunch of people that are very upset because I did not, when they told me what to do, like the locals told me what to do with my property, like I need to let them in to hunt and you know, rip around on their dirt bikes, and that's what I have to do. When I said no, it's private property, then they fought it. And they're looking for any excuse in the world that they can come up with to continue to fight, and force me to obey. And I'm just being quiet, and, you know, I'm not obeying. I am just trying to be forgettable and invisible and get on with my projects. And while I'm getting on my projects and they're on the outside and they're being angry because I didn't obey, and they're trying to find a way to force me to obey, then I'm thinking about the privacy of the people that are here, the safety, plus just the, you know, having a lovely experience while they're here without a bunch of angry people yelling, you know, kind of trying to make a little bit more of a sanctuary, if you will. Mm-hmm. I mean, you know, up on the lab, I think it's quiet and peaceful, and people aren't driving through, and you can walk around and hear the birds and watch the butterflies. And Tim Barker was amazed at hummingbirds. Apparently, they don't have hummingbirds in Australia.
They can't fly that far.
that is. And they're not convicts either. So, you know, that thing. It's a path. And so I'm trying to keep it beautiful and quiet and safe and comfortable and lovely.
Almost Gulch-like.
Despite some people that command me to obey that don't live here. They don't own the land, but they're commanding you what to do with my private property.
Yeah.
Even though I'm sure that they are not doing the same thing with their own private property. So there's that. Now, in the past, did I talk about famous people who are looking for discretion?
Well, first of all, one last point on what we were just talking about is that this is one great thing about the private property laws we have, or private property understanding, or respect for private property. That's one of the great things we have, is that it's your property and you can do with it as you please.
You know, you hit upon probably the most important word for the entire series, and that is respect.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's my property, it's my choice. Have respect for my choice. I mean, I went through a lot to get to the point that I could buy the property. And then, of course, I went through a lot to set things up for people to come in here and share the property. And I think that I think that a lot of people will have a fantastic and awesome and excellent experience up until the point where they decide to command me to do something which I believe is not even in their own best interests. So I guess the key is that there's a locked gate, and everybody has a key, and they can come and go. You know, so it's like
everybody who lives there has a key.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. The people that are supposed to have a key have a key.
Yeah.
So it's not like they're locked in and can't get out. It's not like they're in a cage or something.
Right.
And I think, you know, that somebody's brought up the whole thing about like, well, what if there's an emergency? And
like a fire?
Yeah, like a fire. I mean, you live very rurally now, and so don't expect the response time that you would get in the city. It's going to be, so if it's a medical thing, chances are you're going to probably be far better off, like 20 times better off, to get the person that needs to get to the hospital, get them there on your own, rather than like, oh, I'm going to wait here for the ambulance.
Because they got to drive a long way and then a long way back.
It may or may not be a long way. It depends on a lot of different things, but chances are you probably don't want to wait. Now, here's another thing is like, let's suppose that there is an emergency vehicle coming, and you know it's coming. Here's a tip: unlock the gate. Okay. Now, another thing is that some people, you know, are worried about it, and it's like when there's an emergency situation and they get to the gate, and it's an emergency organization, they're used to going all throughout the country, and they're gonna cut the lock. Mm-hmm. They're used to doing that. They cut locks, they cut chains, they do this all the damn time. If there's an emergency on the other side, and their services have been requested, and they encounter a locked gate, they cut the lock. That's a pretty normal process.
But probable cause.
But the thing is it's like, in fact, on our road, all of the properties have a locked gate. Every last one. They're all locked. And it's like, and it, you know, a little bit of a testament of, I guess, the community in general, perhaps. But but anyway, some people were trying to make a big deal out of locked gate. But I also wanted to talk about, so I'm trying to make a safe space, and then, you know, do some innovation, be left alone during my innovation. And, you know, there's more to say in that space, but stepping past that, discretion. So like from another angle, I don't tell the world where I live. I keep it discreet. I say that we're within an hour of Missoula. And, you know, I don't say that we're north, south, east, or west. I don't reveal like the nearby towns or county or whatever. You know, and there's some things in our area, I don't reveal those. and it's kind of like some people think that that's crazy and stupid and nuts, and it's like it's not going to last forever, but it's gonna last a while. It's going to buy me some discretion for a while, and it's like, why would you give a shit? Why would you do that? And I want to point out that on Permies, we had a guy out there who did a book promotion. We do this on Permies a lot, but every week we give away some books. So this guy is an author, and he comes out, and he goes by Wrangler Star, and which is not his real name. But the thing is that he pointed out, because at Permies we require a real sounding name. We don't require his real name, but something. So we ended up going with W. Star, and it's like, that's a real sounding name, sure. But we learned what his real name was, and we never shared it. But he feels that if he shares his real name, then people could find out where he lives, and he's already had a bunch of problems in that space. Mm-hmm. And you think about it, I mean, I'm no Hollywood star or something, but you know, we've all heard the stories of stalkers with the stars, and there've been some people that were relatively famous, and they're dead now because of their stalkers.
Well, and it's not only that; it's that you are also it is that, but it's also that we're making this public. We are on camera; everybody can watch it, and there's crazy fucking people out there that don't, or people that just don't agree with what we're doing, and maybe want to take it very personally.
True. And already, I mean, online, of course, there's those 1,000 people, and I did not obey them, and they are pretty angry that I didn't obey. And there are a few of them that have tried to do shenanigans unto me remotely, because to punish me for not obeying. You know, they think that by doing things to me, that will get me to obey.
That would be they could even be totally unrelated to what the issue is that they have with you. They could be bringing on.
One of the things that's become really popular these days is called swatting. Are you familiar with it?
I am very familiar with it, and it is fucked up.
And so I'm happy to say that there have now been convictions of people who attempted swatting for the sake of comedy or getting somebody else to obey you, and the people that made the call are in jail.
That's good.
Yeah.
And there's been swatting that has led to death.
Yep.
Totally innocent people dying because of some fucking asshole.
So so basically the bottom line is I keep my location discreet. We've already had several instances where we're glad that we've done that. Okay, so here's somebody saying, what is swatting? And so, like, let's say that I've decided, I say, Josiah, you have to, I don't know, you're gay now. You have to be gay. You have to have sex with dudes. You can't have sex with women anymore.
And I say, no.
It's not my thing. And no, you have to. You have to. And then, you know, so then I decide I'm going to swat Josiah so that he'll learn to be gay. And so I call up the Department of Making You Sad in Josiah's area, and I say, Josiah is running a cocaine farm. He is growing it and distributing. He's got 57 meth labs and 80 hookers. I don't know. I'm going to come up with something so huge. And oh, by the way, it's an anonymous call. Here's his address. Good luck. Click. And so then a SWAT team shows up at your house. You could have like 40 armed people there, and with machine guns and armor, and then they haul you out of the house, and they shove your face in the dirt outside your house and handcuff you. And
if you're lucky, that's all that happens.
Yeah, and it goes from there.
First thing they do is come in. Is there a dog? That dog's dead. All right, now that there's no dogs, what's happening?
After they kill all your animals, they say that's for your safety.
Yeah.
We killed your animals for your safety, Josiah. We're looking out for you. And so anyway, but the key is that nightmare city.
Yeah.
And there's all kinds. I mean, that's swatting is just one example from a long list of shenanigans that people can do. One person can do to another because you did not obey. And people just have this, and you would think that who's going to try and get Josiah to obey something that's stupid? And it's kind of like, well, if you kind of live a lovely, quiet life and you don't go on the internet and post anything interesting, then, you know, it does seem crazy that somebody would do it. But you go out there and you put yourself out on the internet a little bit, and Josiah, I am sure you have had, I'm going to guess, hundreds of people telling you to obey.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like it's
especially with my points of view, I get into trouble sometimes.
In the world of permaculture, a lot of the bigs have contacted me and say, "How do you put up with this? How do you deal with it?" And at first, before they're like, "Oh, Paul, you're too much of a dick. You're too much of a this." And then they try to tell me what I need to do or whatever, and then they get to a point where they're calling me up and they're like, "I am drowning." And
Yep.
How do you do it? How do you? And so, all right. So there's the bottom line is one of the things I do is discretion on my location. I am choosing that if somebody wants to fuck up my shit because I did not obey them, then they're going to work a little harder. You know, they're going to have to do something. They're going to have to work. I'm not going to make it easy for them.
And you're certainly not going to just bow down or back out of your whole lifestyle.
Now, when people come here to be a gapper or an ant or whatever the hell Fred is,
an owner now,
then I say to them, I tell them these two things. One, we're trying to kind of lay low. And if you need community, I'd like to suggest Missoula or the community that's here on the lab or at base camp. And then the other one is discretion. Please help us maintain discretion. And so then these are a couple of things that I request from all people coming here. And I think that almost universally that's been respected. And we've had some exceptions. And I kind of feel like the exceptions have been in the name of being disrespectful. They wish to be openly and flagrantly disrespectful. Generally because they came up with something and they told me, they gave me a command and I did not obey. So we're back to this whole thing. So this is all from the question of like, why did I bring this up during a PDC? Why did I utter this phrase about, I've already kind of scrolled past it. Most people need to hear their own opinion from all other people and are frustrated that they don't have the might to make it right. So you said, why would I bring that up during a PDC? So that's why. This is a core component. Now, if your interactions are only with 3 or 4 people and you don't have anything going on in your life that they want to control, then, you know, you don't have these problems. But I own property. I don't just own property. Apparently, I own some pretty interesting shit. And because it's really interesting, people feel a powerful need to tell me what I have to do. And they need me, absolutely need me to obey. Now, I think that there are some people that have what you might call a reasonable level of intellect. They have a reasonable level of cognitive ability, and they have respect. And so instead of commanding, they might choose to make a suggestion. Or they might choose to even ask, why did you do it this way instead of this other way? Because if it were me, I would do this other way. That's a lovely conversation. And so we can have that kind of chat. but there's always a few, and it's like, and you would think that it's like 1 in 100 or something, but it's more like 30% that the way that they have the conversation is, rather than asking why you might do it that way or something like that, is they initiate the conversation with telling you to obey, which immediately enters you into this conflict. And now there's contention.
It definitely puts up walls for me. If someone comes to me and tells me how to do something or that I need to do something some way, immediately the walls start building of, who the fuck are you to tell me what to do with my own life?
I met this guy, Bob. He seems like he'd be a great match for you. All we have to do is get you to be gay. Just start being gay now. This will all work out. Wait, you don't want to be gay? Well, now I have to fuck up your shit until you learn to obey. And so, and then it's like, and then the other thing is if a person realizes that they can't fuck up your shit, then it's like, okay, I need an army.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to go get some other people. I'll be right back when I bring my army.
They're not following the non-aggression principle, which I tout over and over again. But please follow the non-aggression principle. And if you don't know what it is, look it up.
And even if they look it up, I think that they'll think, oh, it doesn't apply to me. I'd never do anything like that.
Yeah, well, calling SWAT on someone is definitely not following the non-aggression principle.
So, all right. I've shared with you the need for discretion. I've had a lot of threats online from people that have spelled out what they're going to do to fuck up my life, and the fact that they couldn't find out where exactly I live apparently put their fire out. I had one guy call me and tell me that he's at my mailbox in Missoula, and there's no farm here. How do I get to your place? Who are you? And then he gives me a name which I recognize, but it's like, I don't think that guy would just show up. So I ended up not telling him, and I just kind of thought, I think I totally dodged a bullet right there.
Yeah.
But there's been some seriously creepy shit. I mean, there's been a lot of wonderful, lovely stuff, and some creepy shit. So,
one thing that came to mind I wanted to bring up earlier, but I didn't do it because I wanted you to finish your thought, is that in the example of Wrangler Star, there's also professional respect. And I think you definitely have that. And as an example, the example is with Wrangler Star. So Wrangler Star is a guy who doesn't want other people to know what his name is. And you have the professional respect that even if Wrangler Star did something fucked up that you don't agree with, or maybe, I don't know, did something that that ended up, you guys just had a falling out for whatever reason. I think you would still have the professional respect and not be like, ooh, I know he doesn't like people to know his name, so now I'm going to go tell everybody his name. That's a professional respect that I think comes out of experience. In that, if you are working hard at things, there are some things that you're going to have your own pet peeves too. Like you do not want people to know exactly where you live, for these reasons you're giving. And even if someone were upset with you about whatever, they would still, if they were professionals, they would still have the professional respect not to realize that that's something that triggers you and just go and blast it everywhere. So, and I can't believe I just used the word trigger.
All right. I think I think it's, I want to just, I know we're out of time, we're past time.
No.
And I feel like there's probably one more show to do on all of this. But I want to kind of express, in fact, somebody today, this morning, one of the staff at Permies.com commented on the situation that's happening here. And so basically the key is that some of the ants are going to leave. Mm-hmm. And some are going to stay. And everything's fine. But just 3 days before the PDC, then Fred came in this morning. But all right, this morning, somebody brought something up, and they mentioned it in such a way that it was really good. And with Ant Village, you get a chance to find out if you're an ant or a grasshopper. So you get an acre of bare land, and it's like, can you build a shelter? Can you grow enough food to feed yourself? And I think all of us, everybody watching this right now, is sure that they can. But it's not until you actually try that you realize the job might be a little bit bigger than you originally thought. And as I visit with the ants when they very first get started, then there's a bunch of stuff where it's kind of like they get ideas of grandeur. They're going to build a huge shelter. And I suggest that they build something small and humble at first and build something bigger later.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's not good.
Which one?
And so, are you good? Everything all right?
Yeah, sorry. I'm good. I'm having someone grab me something.
Okay, all right. And so then it's an experience. I mean, that's part of it. Part of the experience. I mean, there's a couple of different ways to look at the whole ant and grasshopper story. One is that you find out whether you're more of an ant or a grasshopper. I mean, we all have ant and grasshopper in us, but where are you on the spectrum? The other idea is if you use permaculture, then you're an ant the first year and you get to be a grasshopper the rest of your life. And so you get a chance to, this is all about, Ant Village is all about finding out for yourself, to learn something about yourself. Some people are determined to prove to themselves that they are an ant. Some people realize that they aren't going to pull it off, and before it gets much colder, they bow out gracefully. Mm-hmm. They and usually what I hear is something like, "Oh, I have to go to where my family is for a reason, but I'll be back in 3 weeks," and they never return. And those are the people that were like not really getting a lot done. And you go to look at their plot afterwards, and it's like they were there for 2 months, and there's like really nothing to show for it. So it happens. They learned a lot about themselves. One person so far has been confronted with that powerful realization that you're not an ant, that your ant factor is low, your grasshopper factor is really high.
Darwinism should have taken care of this a long time ago.
Well, I don't know about that.
Okay.
And so you're looking at this, and so, but the thing is that in this person's head is fixed this thing of like, I've decided that I'm an ant, therefore I'm an ant. I have all of this, and you're confronting nature. You're confronting an acre of land. And it's like the things that you want are not happening. So, and it can't be yourself. Therefore, who's stopping you from doing these things that other people are obviously doing? Somebody is clearly stopping you. Mm-hmm. Who is that? Who is stopping you? Who is interfering? And so this one person has worked very hard to fuck up the whole project. Not successfully, but they've tried.
Then they just have nowhere else to go, nothing better to do in life.
And then the whole proclamation is that it's not me. I'm an amazing ant. I am so anty. I reek of antdom. It's the system. The system is a failure. The system is broken, and it's kind of like, no, it isn't. It's just you and an acre. So this is the person that I believe, and I could be wrong, because what I heard from Fred is that there's 3 requests, and one of the 3 requests was that we need to remove the restriction, because the restriction's always been there. We don't want people crossing the gate more than twice a week. We want to kind of build this community. It's kind of a bike ped community where you grow your own food and you don't need outside income very much. Maybe you've got outside income, but it's a different, maybe it's a residual income stream. Maybe you're growing food and selling it. Whatever it is, you don't need to cross that gate more than once or twice a week.
Self-employment is encouraged.
So this person, I believe, and I could be wrong, wanted that to change to allow for a commuter job. So of course I've set the rent crazy ass cheap. In fact, right now for $900 you can rent an acre for now through the end of 2018. So $900 covers a year and a half or so, a little less than a year and a half, something like that, for an acre. You can kind of learn a lot about yourself. So this person insisted that they needed to be able to do a commuter job, and it's like, no, that's not the design here. I'm providing this not for commuter job people, and I've made it very clear in all the Ant Village stuff. And it's like, no.
I haven't changed my mind.
So, all right, we're way past. So Fred, I've brought you along so many days, and really the big finale is the piece that I guess we're going to do next week. That's really the Fred show. But I of course, as always, in every conversation I'm ever in, I dominate the conversation, which I'm not sure that's a good thing. Still nice seeing Fred there, says Jeff. But anyway, Fred, please say something, contribute.
Well, I feel like if I contribute now, we're going to be even more over time.
We are, but it's okay.
Yeah, I don't have to adhere to any networks or bullshit like that. So let's hear it, man. What do you got?
Fred is Ed McMahon to Paul's Johnny Carson. Here's a good question. Oh wait, throwing smoke grenades into your baby's crib, burning your kids, shooting your dog. Oh, okay.
We're talking about what happens with SWAT.
Right. And this is what happens to the stuff that they leave. Is it distributed to the other ants? And so a person could give their stuff to another ant, like here's my chainsaw, you can have it. Here's a chair I made, you can have it. But the system we've set up is that it's like, okay, like the ants are leaving right now. For example, right now, a person can get Jim's plot they can get his improvements for $1,500. So Jim's got a cabin with a stove and a built-in bunk bed. I don't know if he's going to include the furniture or not.
I think the table is bolted to the floor. So.
Okay.
All right.
He's got a nice little woodshed there. It's an Ayler style cabin. It's in good shape. It's pretty.
So his plot and his improvements.
Just the improvements are currently $1,500. Now, and then of course,
Jim.
Yeah, you would pay that to Jim.
Yeah.
You would buy Jim's improvements. Now you could come out and be in Ant Village for $900 for now through the end of 2018. And if Jim's cool with it, then you take over Jim's plot with his improvements. And you've paid Jim $1,500, you've paid me $900, and ta-da, you got a head start. You're on Jim's plot. So does that help? That might answer the question there. What happens to the stuff they leave? Is it distributed in? So there you go. That's the system that we have in place. Now, of course, if you leave and you're horribly mean and awful, then I can say, get the fuck out. I retain ownership of everything.
No.
And so then it behooves one to leave gracefully.
It behooves one to research too before coming out.
Well, I think these guys, they all did their research.
Okay.
In fact, Jim bought my political podcast, which is like I have a big message over it. Don't buy this. If you're gonna hate me, you're gonna give me $25 first. But he paid the $25 because he wanted to learn like how much of a dick am I, and apparently I was acceptable. So and of course then there's the whole thing, you got to listen to at least 200 podcasts. So he's listened to 200. So he got a pretty good idea what he's getting into. Plus it's pretty well spelled out and detailed in the Ant Village thread. Like what's the dealio? So they've done their research. The thing is that they don't just want change. It kind of sounds like they're, and I might be reading too much into this. It sounds like they're being very emphatic that I must change my mind. I must change the way that I think. I must obey.
Or they could just go and find a community that has the things they want.
And yeah, and I think there's going to be some of that. And I think that I've heard a rumor, and I don't know how true it is, that the few that are leaving are going to pool their money and buy land, and they're going to probably use a consensus model for decision making.
Awesome, good for them.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that. I mean, that the trick with that would be, I'm not sure they have the money to buy land.
No.
And so, because the Ant Village deal is pretty fucking cheap, and it's a pretty sweet deal to get into, I would like to think that maybe they could sell their improvements and come up with enough to make a down payment on a piece of land and start over.
Who knows? It's up to them.
Yeah.
Not many places where you could buy an acre of land or rent an acre of land and then use all of your neighbor's property to harvest trees to build, your house and go get some clay from over here and some sand from over there. But, if you're in the Ant Village, you can totally do that because you have access to all of property.
I think I've made it freakishly cheap and way easy to do because I want to put permaculture forward. This is really about, and so we've got more we could talk about next week. But
I think it's a great opportunity. What are we going to talk about next week? Oh, wait, before we do that, I want to plug 2 books.
There's Diana Lee Christian's book.
Yep, great book. She actually just wrote a second one about joining community, not create. This is about creating community.
Right.
The second book is about joining community, depending on what spectrum you're on. This is the other book.
Wow. Human ownership. What is that about?
Human Ownership, a manual for new tax farmers. It's by Stefan Molyneux. If you know anything about Stefan Molyneux, you probably guess what that's all about.
So he believes when you pay taxes, you're proving that you're a slave to government?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's satirical.
Well, it's a violation of the non-aggression principle.
Okay. All right. I think next we're going to talk about these same issues, but it'll be probably the final stretch. That's what I'm thinking. The last little bits and bobs. But again, permaculture, I think 90% of permaculture is the community issue. 90% of the challenge in doing permaculture is the community issue.
Yeah, someone wrote something in the chat here. Here it is. It is so sad to me that people can be students of permaculture and still ignore volunteerism. Seems people are so unwilling to let go of the current power structure of modern-day society. Communities that try to mimic something that resembles a country in their current forms are always doomed to fail. I thought that was pretty good. Pretty okay. All right. We'll see everybody next week. tv.permaethos.com to catch this episode, download previous episodes, see all the show notes. These 2 books, I'll put links to them in the show notes. And we'll see everybody next week.
Oh, and I've got the Rocket Mass Eater Jamboree coming up in October. We've been selling tickets all week this week.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, so lots and lots going on.
I hear the jamborees are so much fun. I haven't been to one yet. This will be my first, but I hear they're a ton of fun.
That's it. Bye-bye.
Take care, guys. See you next week.